And that program is not allowing them to jump a level
Your
financially.
marriage is is a wreck. Like you're stuck in a shitty job. You have like no friends. And then
The outside world starts complying with the program.
that's how certain people, I guess, end up in wrong professions, in wrong marriages, in wrong
That
lives.
was an example of how you can go from good to great. Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny Steinberg, and my guest today is Vadim Molo. We're an extended family, and we decided that we will talk, and it should come out as a lot of fun for you guys.
Yeah, let me do an intro too then. So, hello and everybody, welcome. People that listen to me usually. So the key here is Zhenya is my cousin. She's had a long road to where she got today, and I want to pick that apart a little bit because she started out her career in biology, I believe, because I think her undergrad is in bio. She can correct me if I'm wrong. And then she ended up with a programming degree, and then she worked in programming for many years. But then recently, probably in the last 3 to 5 years, as far as I know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, she got into all the weird spiritual shit. Um, and by spiritual shit, I mean psychology, hypnosis, and other forms of psychological analysis and healing and helping people and all of those things. And so I'd like to understand how such a pragmatic individual ended up in such a spiritual space. And so back to you.
You always crack me up. Always. Ever since I remember you started talking, you cracking me up. So let's fact check a little bit here. So my degree actually, I started out as a medical student back
Mm.
in Belarus, where we're from. Then when we came here, I have a degree in biochemistry, but you were close. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
It was
Close
very
enough. Actually, it's more complex. It's not biology, it's biochemistry.
biochemistry, right? So I was always drawn to medicine. Let's put it
Mm-hmm.
that way, right? And few more fact checks. Yes, I was working as a programmer for a couple of years, but then I switched to more like managerial role, but still in IT, you're right. And then in terms of woo-woo stuff, yeah, I've always been doing that ever since I remember myself. I remember myself being 5 year old riding a train and thinking, how is this whole world working? How is it set up? So
Mm-hmm.
I was always drawn to different modalities. I'm looking at my other wall and I see like 15 different degrees and certificates. I started out kind of early, taking all the different certificates in all different healing modalities. And like professionally, I've been doing this for the past 7 years.
Okay. Well, 3 to 5 was my guess.
You were very, very close. Tiny baby tweaks. Yes. And but lately, you're right. I started doing it more and more. And lately, I've been very interested in enhancing my skills in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Hypnosis and spiritual energetic healing.
What does that entail? Like, what is spiritual and energetic healing? I don't know anything about it.
I
Again,
can
I'm
tell you.
sort of.
So, how about this? I'll tell you this. I believe that our bodies and our lives are not the cause, they're the result.
Of.
Our programs like, let's give an example, right? Like a lot of ladies, for example. I'm not saying that everybody here, but a lot of ladies think that all men are cheats, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the program. And what happens is And the way they acquire the program is multiple ways. They can get it from the parents, from society, from the books, it doesn't matter. But what happens is when this program is in the person, the outside world starts complying with the program, and event situations, scenarios happen where that program actually comes true, like a
Mm-hmm.
confirmation from the outside. Another program is that working hard actually can produce money, right? And a lot of people think that way. And the harder they work, the more money they have, but they don't have much, right? It's another program. And that program is not allowing them to jump a level financially because the outside world complies with that program and it manifests itself the way this person believes. So basically, the person is the observer of their own life,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever they observe comes true. Does it make sense?
It does. Are you referring to certain types of people, or are you just kind of generalizing across a broad
For everybody.
spectrum?
No,
Because
no,
I
it's
think different people think differently. Like, for example, I look at those sayings and I've heard them, but I don't think they're the full story. They're kind of half.
because you did not accept them. You did not accept those beliefs. And
But
since
was the different? Let me ask you this: is there a difference between the types of people? Like, can you narrow it down to maybe the types of people that accept them versus don't accept them? Like, what is there something else that has to happen in order for people to kind of start running that program as a default?
so a couple of different components. One, a lot of times the programs and beliefs, they arise during some kind of situations. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some kind of situation. I can give you an example. A little child is sitting in mom's hands, and the grandma is having a fight with mom. But grandma was supposed to give her the child the milk. She was already holding the milk. She was taking the milk to the kid,
Mm-hmm.
and the kid almost got the milk. Mom and grandma are fighting. Grandma gets mad, takes the milk, and leaves. The child, who's like 2 years old, makes a conclusion that is absolutely not logical,
Mm-hmm.
that it's all her fault, and her entire life she is working extra hard to please people because she thinks if people are arguing, it's her fault because she never got the milk.
Mm-hmm.
So when a situation arises, then this erroneous decision that becomes a program is made. That's one. Number two, different people are born very differently. Like you are not me and I'm not you. Some
Thank God for that.
I knew this was coming. So, so some people are more sensitive and some people are less sensitive.
Mm.
Good question you ask. Whatever you see, observe outside, you're not readily assuming it, right? You're like observing it, you're making some kind of decision, and if you're not that sensitive, it just goes past by you.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're more sensitive people, same tragic situation impacts one person differently than the other.
Yeah, agreed. Now, can you narrow that even further into maybe personality traits? Because, if you start looking at kind of systems of psychological analysis, you have kind of the big five personality theory, for example, neuroticism and extroversion and conscientiousness and
I
openness, like the five, the big five. Can't you then, based on different levels of each of those in a person, predict who's going to be more sensitive to it versus who's not? Like, for example, people who are high in neuroticism right out of the womb by default are going to be more sensitive to some degree to these events happening and being absorbed as programming versus people who are low in neuroticism, for example, they're going to witness the same events and think nothing of them.
So I'm not a psychologist, and I don't want to speak to psychology at all because I don't have a degree. I don't want to talk about things that I don't know.
Okay.
I don't want to label things. Like today they're labeled one way. 100 years ago they were labeled differently. In 100 years they're gonna have yet another label.
Yeah, that was just an example. I was just curious if they can be attributed to some personality type or archetype or
So
um,
personality types are born. Okay, so let's start from the beginning.
oh yeah, they're born and they're realized throughout life. This is, I think, why you have nature and nurture, right? There's a duality to humans because you're born with certain things, but then you have to develop them throughout your life. That's how certain people, I guess, end up in wrong professions, in wrong marriages, in wrong lives, because they spend their entire lives not actually knowing who they are, and so they basically follow a certain path or a program, like you said, and then they end up not with where they're supposed to be by their birth.
So let's start from the beginning. It's not that simple. Let's start from the very, 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 very beginning. Most of the feelings, stock programs, concepts, we also call them concepts, ideas, personalities are formed from zero conception. Not talking about 0 years old, from conception, because souls of the kids inside of the womb, they actually assume a lot of stuff from their parents. And I saw that 100 million times when I work with people. So starting with the zero.
They're in conception.
You're in conception, and between conception and birth.
I've witnessed many conceptions, and I can tell you this.
I knew this was coming. So zero, a birth, and then from birth to 7 years old, approximately. Let me explain how it works. It's very complicated. It's not that simple at all. So
Just narrow it down to so
basics.
average human being can understand, how to think about this.
I'll explain, no problem.
Explain as if I'm a Labrador.
So first of all, I'm a true believer that we incarnate. So we bring some karmic stuff from previous iterations. We are born with a certain code. Certain code meaning certain set of lessons for this lifetime. Also, we inherit some stuff genetically from our ancestors. So it's our own soul's path, our ancestors, but most of our ideas, feelings are formed between zero, conception, and 7 years old. Here's why. Child's brain is different than adult's brain. Until 7 years old, everything that happens to a kid, all of the situations when not so nice things are happening, traumas, ideas, they go straight to subconscious mind. At around 5 to 7 years old, our subconscious mind gets this big wall called critical factor. So let's say, I'm going to say, Vadim, let's call you Greg. I'm going to call you Greg for the rest of the night tonight. When you wake up tomorrow, who are you going to be?
Same person.
Absolutely, because that critical factor is already closed. So information does not get into subconscious mind that easily. What happens between 0 and 7 years old is formation of a person. Whoever they're surrounded with, like parents, a daycare, friends, grandparents have a huge impact. And you know that. Like our grandpa, who we love dearly, made a huge impact on both you and I, for example.
Absolutely.
So
Yesterday was his birthday, actually.
agreed. Yes, I remember. Yes, you're right. Vadim and I, we had the best grandpa in the world. He was the most incredible, kindest person. And we just got lucky that way. Basically, but some people don't have a very good situation at home. So parents, mom influence is huge. Mom is a world for the child. For a dad, is huge. For example, if dad does not appreciate the girl, his daughter grows up with a low self-esteem, no matter what. It's a law. So this is how, very basically, but if you want to dig a little deeper, what happens is when something not so nice happens, we call it not so nice, something bad happens to a person, a little person, the big emotion comes up. And when that big emotion comes up, a sub-personality gets formed. And some sub-personality, it has a lot of similar features to a person, but it usually protects a person from that not so nice thing happening again. And it starts protecting very actively, like all fears, right? I don't want to ride that elevator because I heard that I have that fear. When we were little, we had another cousin. And me and my other cousin, Vadim wasn't even born yet. We were standing in front of the elevator. I was like 4 years old. I still remember that. And Sasha, Alex, he goes, you know what? I heard the story that elevator arrives without the floor and the person doesn't look at it, just makes a step and falls.
I mean, we grew up in the Soviet Union. He might have been absolutely right about it.
No, it did happen.
I'm sure.
But when he's telling that to a 4-year-old me,
That's a big deal. Yeah, I hear you.
ever since, every time I walk into the elevator, I want to make sure there's a floor. It arrived as a whole, not in pieces. So my part at that moment was born that protects me from floorless elevators. So it kicks in right away. Elevator button is pressed. My part steps up and says, Zhenya, look at the floor. Make sure. You know that chatter in your head? This is where it's from. It's the parts that are protecting us. They're talking. It's an example. I gave you an example, but we have hundreds and thousands of those parts. And some of them are very innocent, like riding a bike. We learn how to ride a bike. It goes straight to subconscious mind. We know how to do it without thinking. That's a part doing it. You know how to drive. It's another part. Without thinking, you're thinking about tomorrow's podcast while you're driving because there's a part of you already knows what to do. It just does it automatically. And going back to your question about personalities, just imagine something not so nice happens. A personality gets born in a person that's neurotic, like you mentioned, because that part is trying to protect that person from something bad happening again. Does it make sense?
It does. What is that rooted in? Where does that come? That 0 to 7 and the form.
It's a common knowledge.
Is it? Is it?
It's like every hypnotist knows that. Yes. Yeah, it's like it's a common knowledge, but that critical factor, it solidifies at 7. So how do we work with that, right? If it's already solidified and it's whatever is inside is very protected and it's very lazy to change. You know, I talk to a lot of people that complain, oh, I have this and I have that. And I'm like, I can help you. They're like, no, I've lived my life like that. I'm gonna live in many more years without, I don't want to change. You know what is talking? It's the subconscious and parts are talking. They don't want to change.
Well, they're absolutely comfortable because, first of all, they've gotten here somehow with this thing intact. And clearly, the fear is that if you destroy this at this age, who am I going to be for the rest of the life? There's fear of losing that part that essentially kept them alive this long.
Exactly correct. You
Yeah, I
got,
mean, people generally don't change. It's very difficult to. I mean, again, certain people. Um, I
well,
guess
I'll tell you.
I guess that the trauma has to be so um, so acute that you basically have no choice but to change.
I mean, if you're desperate, you might change, but a lot of people choose not to. A lot of people choose to continue in the familiar bad territory. It's bad.
Right.
And they
Well, but
believe
but it's familiar.
that it's familiar. And that,
Correct.
yeah, it's a comfort zone. And comfort zone can be very painful, but it's still a comfort zone for, again, it's not our soul that doesn't want to change. It's those personalities. They're very active all the time.
Well, people just have a fear of the unknown in general because, the order that they've established with this personality is stable. It may not be ideal, but it's stable. And then chaos that they're gonna have to go through
Yes.
is the unknown, and it's hard. And so the problem again is that chaos is potential, but also chaos is the fear, and it's the unknown. Unknown is the positive and a negative because the unknown, the potential is born. You could be better than you were before, but then you have to kind of, to some degree, a part of you has to die, and nobody, who the hell wants to die, you know, even
Nobody,
if it's just a part of you.
yeah, absolutely correct. Nobody wants to die. Even you totally got it. And fear of unknown is one of the biggest fears that people have. It's a fear of unknown, fear of what other people will think of you.
Yeah, see, that doesn't really bother me.
Well, it doesn't apply to you specifically, but it's a very,
Right.
very, very, very common fear. Fear of unknown, I think, is even in our limbic system. That's like our primitive brain that everybody's like, it's a normal fear. By the way, fears can be good and can be bad.
Oh, they protect you. They keep you safe. They keep
Absolutely.
you safe. It's like, don't touch the fire. You won't burn your
Don't
hand.
touch the hot stove. Don't play with a rattlesnake. Don't,
Correct.
yeah, but they're irrational fears. Those are the ones that I'm working with, like fear of elevator
Elevator
Middle
floors.
floors.
Exactly. Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
it's pretty irrational. They say that the best solution for that is exposure therapy. You basically have to start getting close to an elevator, pressing the button, getting in, seeing that there's a floor, and then at a certain point, it starts kind of become manageable.
what's funny?
It never actually goes away. See, what they say is that
They who?
y- y-
They who?
well, there's this psychological analysis. Like I've listened to a lot of
Sure. But with my techniques, you can
yeah.
clear it in one session without any exposure therapy.
Yeah, but again, they are saying is that you don't actually get rid of the fear, you just become braver.
Sure, but you can get rid of it with the hypnosis, with the tech. Actually, what I do, let me tell you what I do. It's
Yeah,
actually dehypnosis. I'll explain what it means.
because you're already hypnotized, you're saying, so I dehypnotize
Yeah,
you.
exactly, because
And
you're
it's good marketing. It's like reverse psychology.
but that's exactly what happens because we're hypnotized by those traumas. They're holding us hostages. They're talking over us. They're like dictating our behaviors. We're like machines of those experiences. We're hypnotized by them. And what I'm doing, I'm literally taking a person out of that specific hypnosis, of that specific thing that they want to change. Does it make
It
sense?
does. Let me ask you this. If you're able to achieve all that and people are willing to do it, what is the potential? I mean, how far can you go if you let it all work out? And a better question is, what's the path there? How much time and activity does it take? And are you there yourself doing that? You know, like, have you reached your full potential, knowing what you know and doing what you do?
Yeah, it's like, what is it called? Shoemaker without the shoes. Yes.
Yeah, the dentist with bad teeth. You know, the IT person with a browser that's not updated.
Oh my God, you're so funny. You're funny. I love it. So it's very cool. So basically, people that are walking around, they don't understand the height they can reach. Like everybody's asking me, who's your client? I'm like, anybody who I walk out of outside, that's my client. Here's why.
That's too broad. See, that's why I have a problem selling, because you're
I have problem selling. I have a word of mouth.
okay, fine.
Never advertise. Like people are referring to me. I don't have any problem
That's
selling.
good. All right, fine, no problem.
But what I was going to say is this. Sometimes people come when they have a problem, right? Most of the time when they have a problem and we fix the
Absolutely.
problem and they move on. However, some people don't even know what heights they can reach if they actually change something in their subconscious mind. Like a good example would just an example. Somebody is making 10,000 a month, dollars, $10,000 a month. Been making that their entire life. Not talking about you. I'm talking about a regular person out there. And they don't even understand that there's a limitation in their own subconscious mind that is not allowing them to make a leap, not allowing them to make at least 20,000 a month, or from 20 to 30. Or for some people, they go from 1 million to another. Like I know business owners, they've been doing everything under the sun and they're making good $1 million, right? But they've been trying to grow the company and they always go back to the same size, always go back to the same income because there's a program there or a feeling. I don't know what it is. It's either a feeling or a program that is not allowing them to go to the next level, even though they're making very good money. But what separates a good businessman from a very good businessman is yet another program.
Hmm.
Does it
What is
make
that? What is the program? Or is it dependent upon the
in terms of
businessman?
finances, there you know what's so funny? When I start digging, like a person comes in and cannot stand their wife, for example, right?
Hmm. That's a problem.
Something in the wife irritates that person, or something in the husband irritates that person. When we start digging, it could be some childhood mother or father situation, or it could be they hate the place where they live, or they hate, like, they don't like this and that. Seriously, like it on the surface, it looks one way, but if you start digging,
Hmm.
entirely different problems. So some basic stuff is I worked with a guy, I personally worked with a person who was making a lot of money, and then money brought him a danger. Something dangerous happened when he had money.
Hmm.
And he stopped working for other reasons. But
Hmm.
and he was barely making, barely making anything. And when we started digging, a big fear of big money came up because big money comes with a threat to himself, to the family, to his health, to his life, right? So once we remove that, it's like a whole new world. He started right away, right away. He found a few clients and he started making good money right away, like literally next week.
Is a consultant?
He was not, no, he's not even in this country. By the way, I work over Zoom. I don't
Okay,
I don't work in person. It's a different I work with the whole world. I work with pretty much any country as long as I know their language. I can work Russian, I can work English.
understood. Those seem to cover 80% of the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an example of how you can go from good to great. But there is examples of how you can go from miserable to normal.
Yeah, that's more interesting almost, because good to great, although that's interesting too, because the question is where the limit is, but it's much easier to look at a solution when you're going from miserable to okay than from great to even better. Because especially at the height, although the risk assessment is pretty much the same, the ratio of risk is the same. It's kind of like
It's a Pareto rule. It's like
yeah,
20,
for sure.
20. It's 80-20. So 20% of your effort's gonna give you 80% of the result.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
the other 80 is gonna take you higher, higher, higher.
That's right. In all disciplines, a small minority basically retains all the benefits, and then everybody else is at the bottom.
Yeah. So if you ask me who will benefit, everybody. There are four areas of life. One is health, another one is relationships, another one is career, and the fourth one is very popular, by the way. Want to take a guess what it is?
Spirituality.
Close, but no.
Okay, you got health, money, family.
Relationships, not necessarily family.
Yeah. Relationships.
Relationships.
Relationships, sure. Yeah, I don't know what else. Progress of some sort.
Again, close, very close. Path and purpose.
Hmm.
A lot of people come to realization, especially midlife, when
What?
hectic life, hectic life is happening, and then they start thinking, what was I born for? Like, what am I here on this earth to do? And what are my really qualities that I brought to this world? How can I? It's interesting. It's a true spiritual calling, pretty much of everybody.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like I feel it. What's why? Like what the hell is the purpose?
What am I here for?
Yeah, see, I don't have that thing. It's like what can I get into that I'm gonna feel meaning and purpose in?
Yes,
It
that's exactly what it is. Where you feel in your own place that you were born to do.
yeah, I think personally I almost don't care why I was, why am I here? It's more like what what should I strive for? What should I dedicate my time to that will bring the biggest benefit?
Yeah. And then, but it also joy to you, right? You
Well,
want to
yeah, you know,
have a joy doing that. And I actually hear a lot right now, and a lot of times people come in and say, you know what? I want to know what I'm here for. And I'm like looking and I'm like, you have your whole life a total wreck. And
yeah,
you
you got
you want
you
to know what you're born for.
yeah, sounds like you got to get younger friends.
I
You're hanging out with people that are too old.
these are not friends. These are my clients.
I understand. I'm just
A
messing
lot of
around.
times clients come in with that. I'm like, looking, don't you want to fix something first?
What's my purpose? Yeah, it's like how about just fucking stepping into an elevator to start with, because like that seems to be a problem at the moment. Because it's like your marriage is a wreck. Like you're stuck in a shitty job. You have like no friends, and then like
Your
you're
physical body is falling apart.
correct. The physical body is falling. You're like 70 pounds overweight, and it's like really you want to know like why you're here? How about to fix all those things?
That's funny, right?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the problem because those are the people asking the questions.
Those are the no, this is exactly what I was trying to say. This is the work of the parts. Parts don't nobody wants to change. Parts don't want to go. Sub personalities don't want to leave. They're like, okay, bring someone over. We need a friend. Bring another part that's gonna do this for you, right? Instead of like, you know what I'm saying? People
I
don't
do.
want to change. They want to know something like entertainment wise. Oh, but changing to actually enjoy life. There's another thing I just thought of. A lot of people don't live their own life. they live somebody else's life.
That is
They don't
correct.
even know who they are.
That's absolutely true.
It's, and I would say, I was thinking about it and I'm like, what's the percentage of people not living their own life? I would say it's like 90 something percent. It's
See, I don't know if it's 90. Some people just get lucky and they're kind of like straight path, good family, good opportunities, just things work out.
That's
Then there's
not
like
what I mean.
then there's like I know, but there's and again, just by sheer luck, things just work out for them and they seem to be okay. Um, or maybe they're strong-willed and they kind of like push through regardless of what other people put on them. And then
Mhm.
there are people that end up in some shitty situation that kind of like turns their whole life upside down, in their 40s, 30s, and then they're like actually willing to change. And then at like, 40, 50 years old, they figure out who they are through like brute force. And then, they live the rest of their life more or less happy and content. And then everybody else is kind of like they're 70, they're 80, and then they're sort of on the downslope, and they have a realization that they basically lived their entire life for somebody else.
So, okay, let me dissect this a little bit. Living for somebody else does not mean that it's not living your life in my book.
Yeah, certain people
I
have.
was saying, what I actually trying to say was mom, dad, society gives you some ideas. This is the way it should be. Like a girl has to have a kid when she's 25 or something. She has to have children in general, right?
Yeah, go study IT because it's a prosperous field. Like that's what I've been told. That's why I have a computer science degree.
I remember those days.
Absolutely, it's ridiculous, but I've never worked a day in my life in computer science. And
You
and
were,
and so and so they say if you get on the wrong bus, make sure to get off on the first stop.
yeah. And some people get off on the first stop, some get off in a fifth stop, and some go straight to the end of the route.
Yep.
But that's just one bus. Now
Mm-hmm.
imagine we all are on hundreds of buses right now at the same time. So computer science was one of the buses for you. There was another bus, like,
Correct.
and then there's another bus, and there's another bus. And which stop we're actually exiting each bus? That's the question.
All right, because it's a relationship bus, and then career bus, and then your health bus, and it's like essentially all of those buses.
And then there's sub buses
Oh,
too.
sub buses. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's like a bus in a bus. I got
There's
it.
a bus and a bus. So where are we in those buses? I've never thought of this analogy, but it's a good one. I'm going to use it moving forward. It's a good analogy. And just think about it, where we are in that bus. Ideally, we should have our own bus, just one, just us, nobody else. But we're beings of the society, and society started imposing on us from day one. Remember as little kids, you and I, we grew up back in Belarus, right? And
Mm-hmm.
at that time in Belarus, I don't know the English word for it. They were basically putting babies in the sheets and
Oh yeah, yeah. They wrap them like they
they
they do it
wrap
now too. They sell it on Amazon, like little wraps, so your baby is like super
the
tight.
babies like that.
We did that to our babies. Is that a bad idea?
So basically, what you do is you are restricting their freedom from day zero,
Hmm.
and the baby cannot move.
Yeah, I can't give the baby freedom. Sorry.
Yeah, you can. That's the thing. So that is the biggest, like a lot of times in the session, it comes up. Like I was born free, I wanted to breathe, I wanted to do this, and I got restricted. And that restriction imposes somebody else's will on you. You're no longer free spirit, you're no longer free being at that moment.
I see. I think you need restrictions. That's the I need you need borders that guide you because I think in all creativity, in my opinion, and there's schools of thought on it because creativity is supposed to be freedom. Um, and its openness and, no lack of borders creates creativity. But I think for me, at least, creativity comes when there are kind of parameters set on where the boundaries lie.
Huh?
And so I operate my best within the boundaries, because if I know that that's where the boundaries are, then
Mm,
I can operate the most creatively within them, because ideas, in my opinion, have to be practical. And
mhm.
so if you don't put that boundary of practicality on ideas, you can go in a million of other directions and never actually pick one. So,
Sure.
so, so to some degree, you can make a claim that even though I don't use that IT education, it's still a better path than nothing. Because at the time, like at 20s, who the fuck knows what you're gonna be? Like, I basically just started figuring out what I actually want in life. And I'm like 43.
Yeah, we
And
have.
then I might be wrong about it too at this point. So it's like
Mm.
at 20, when you're trying to go somewhere, I think you do need some degree of direction, some degree of boundaries, whether that's set by society or by or by parents, or by siblings, or somebody, like lifestyle, perhaps, maybe the country, I
Hey,
think you need the boundaries.
suggested and imposed are two
Yeah,
things.
I
By the
know.
end of the day, you make the choice.
I know, but suggested is also, see, I have a problem with suggested, because you suggest to people that they need to change to get better. Like, nobody's going to want to change.
I
Very few.
suggest only when I'm asked. I don't suggest. When it's in the regular conversation, I observe. If they ask me a question, I'll answer.
Yeah, you remember asking anybody when you were 20 years old what you should study in college? It's like,
Yeah,
nope.
yeah, absolutely. I was asking a lot.
I was not asking anybody.
I
I just
was
kind
I
of,
was looking for some, but honestly, me, I knew. What when I was a little girl, all I was doing, I was playing a doctor.
hmm,
You know how kids play whatever? I was playing a doctor ever since I remember myself. I knew. But I guess I was lucky in that specific way, but not everybody's having, but at least you do have inclinations. And with those inclinations, right now there's so many tests, there's so many resources for young generation to go to college. It's so much easier.
I
Like
know. There's
before,
plenty of unemployed graduates with, $100,000 in debt, with inclinations in art history. It's like, how the fuck is that working out?
not so great.
Exactly. So it's like maybe somebody should have imposed some, STEM on them
Or they
early
can
enough.
ask their higher self, they can come to me for path and purpose,
Yep.
find out, because I'm not telling them what their path and purpose is. They actually connect to their higher self that knows everything. And you ask that question and you get the answers. I'm not telling them who they are, I mean, I can kind of tell a little bit just because I've been practicing some intuition for a while, but I'm not doing that. I'm asking their higher self to tell them what is the best path for them right now.
Hmm. And
And
this is through hypnosis,
this
or
is,
is or a series of different steps, one of which includes hypnosis.
well, I also do theta healing.
What
That's
is that?
it's
What is
another
that?
modality. It's another modality founded by Vianna Steibel. It's talking to, well, we're talking about different materials right now. We're talking about spiritual work right now because theta healing is purely spiritual technique. It's like connecting up, it's connecting to the source of all, and seeing things there. And then you ask the source, and you can ask the higher self of a person, because every person has part of the creation inside of them, a soul. It's there. It's a spirit. It's inside of us.
Hmm.
So we're all part of the creation. It's that light inside of us. So the best thing is to connect to the higher self that it knows everything. It's all knowing. And if you have any questions, that's the best resource to answer. However, to not very experienced person, it might not be the higher self that's answering. We have to be very careful understanding who's talking. But that's a topic for another conversation. There's a whole new other realm of things that we did not even touch on today.
Sounds like you're an ayahuasca shaman.
I've never tried any of that.
But I think essentially that's what it's supposed to be, right? Because you're basically getting in touch with Mother Nature, and then you're going through the self-discovery and asking questions, and you have a guide, and you're doing all that without the drugs. I get it.
I don't want to talk about something I don't know. Like I've never tried it. I've never tried anything like that. I don't want to talk about something I've never tried.
Understood. Okay, then. Hypnotize away.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I think this is a good stopping point. What do you think?
yeah. I think we're gonna have to record another one because I want to dive deeper into the actual practice of it because theoretically, I understand. I understand the origins. I understand the applications, kind of the purpose of doing it, the constraints you have with people not wanting to change,
Yeah,
which is probably the biggest thing because I think people stand in their own way most of the time, right?
you're absolutely correct there.
All right. All right. And so I think something drastic has to happen because if it's not drastic enough, generally people don't want to change because it's so difficult as is that again, you're ultimately killing the spiritual part of yourself that's protected you your whole life from stepping into elevators with no floor. And now you've got to like kill that part and basically become a completely different, unknown human being. All of us potential with higher potential, perhaps, but like who the hell knows to them.
Yeah, to win something, you have to lose something.
Well, absolutely. It's like that's right.
It's a rule. It's a law. It's a rule. Yeah. We actually can talk about something else next time if you want. The laws of the universe that nobody actually talks about. How
Mm.
things are actually created here.
According to whom?
That's I'm gonna explain according to whom. It's a very ancient laws that were channeled. The Hermes Trismegismus, many years. Yes, you probably never heard of him. Hermes Trismegismus.
Her mistress is what's her name?
Hermes? You
Oh,
know
her
Hermes?
Hermes. I thought you
You
said her mistress.
Hermes.
Something. Okay.
Hermes Trismegismus is the last name.
Okay. Sounds like he's Lithuanian.
I don't even know if he had a nationality back. It was thousands of years ago.
Yeah, never heard of this. Okay, I'll look it up. Text me the spelling,
I
and
will.
I'll
Look
see
it
if I
up.
can get prepared.
Yeah, and that would be a fun conversation because we live in a universe according to the laws, but most of the people don't know those laws and
Hmm.
breaking them all the time and not understanding why things are happening a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything here is logical, everything here has an order, and everything here is fair in its own way.
Fair in its own way.
You know, like why things are happening. There's always a reason why.
You just may not understand what it is. Correct. I would say I agree with that.
And we can look at the laws of the universe, laws of the Hermes Trismegismus, just to shed a little bit of light on some of them.
I
Not
would
all.
actually go. Yeah, I would actually go a step further and say that even if it's not true, it's better to live like it is true, because you're better off having a narrative rather than all things being random events. Because if all things are random events that don't have any meaning or origin, then it's hard to find patterns, right? And patterns is basically how we recognize the world.
It's hard to find peace because when you find patterns, you want to find patterns in order to find internal peace inside of yourself. Because otherwise, you'll be searching and like trying to question and why and why and why and why. There's always a why.
Hmm. Okay. Why don't we leave it for the next time?
All right, sounds good.
Good talk.
So,
See you around. Bye bye.
bye-bye.